Nigerian workers celebrate May Day with some caution, bearing in mind that even though the new national minimum wage is now law, their pay slips have not gotten the memo just yet. And now that the 2019 budget has been passed by the Senate, we continue to follow the journey of the all-important document in its quest to actualization. Welcome to the program tonight. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I am Kayode Okikiolu. Well, it's still International Workers' Day here in Nigeria, and I'm almost certain you've heard the Solidarity Forever song at some point today. Or maybe not. Well, that song that has become a major hit for protests in Nigeria was written over 100 years ago by a labor activist. His name, Ralph Chaplin. Now, this simply implies that labor and struggle have remained inseparable for decades. But you might want to ask, why should workers need to protest for better working conditions and wages? I mean, do they deserve to add the task of protesting to their job descriptions after spending at least 40 hours at work weekly? Workers definitely deserve better. And to every diligent worker out there, you are indeed special.
Members of the Nigerian Labour Congress, that is Nigerian Union of Teachers.
Well, tonight on the program, we'll take a look at the politics of minimum wage in the country. And joining us are individuals who are workers in their own right at various levels and capacities. From our Abuja studio, we have the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senator Enang. Thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much.
And right here in Lagos, we have Mr. Babatunde Ruwashe. Is the president of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. That's LCCI. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me on the program.
It's an honor. Now let's get into it. It is Workers' Day in Nigeria, and you are, as it were, a representative of private employers across the country. You interact with workers a lot. Would you say Nigerian workers are excited, especially because it's called a celebration? Do they have anything to celebrate?
Well, the Nigerian workers don't have anything to celebrate, and we as Nigerians don't have anything to celebrate. And I must also point out that in the organized private sector, we have collective bargaining, which we have been doing, I think, every 4 years. So in the organized private sector, I don't think there's anybody any less than 30,000, all put together, because you have lunch allowance, you have transport allowance. By the time you put all these together, it's more than 30,000. But the problem of the Nigerian worker is the problem of the average Nigerian. You have to pay for virtually everything. You need money to get yourself around. You need money to send your children to school. You need money to take care of your health. You need money to take care of your dependent. These are things that social welfare should have taken care of. We have it. And not until when we get this, it's not likely we are going to have what we can call a living wage.
Okay.
Because it's all about money. You are going to be throwing money at everything, and your money goes away before you know it. I mean, so we need to get infrastructure right. We need to have social benefits that would help the people.
Great. Now you've talked about minimum wage. I would like to show you something briefly, but let's go to Abuja and speak with Senator Enang. Now, you announced the signing of the minimum wage bill into law a few weeks ago, and at this point, workers are yet to get what we call an alert. So briefly, I'd like you to tell us, when are workers likely to start enjoying, as it were, this new minimum wage? Because that has been some issue of contention lately.
Well, you remember that Mr. President assented to the bill became law about the 18th of April. Yeah. That's 2 weeks ago, and the payment is contained and was addressed in the 2019 proposed budget. As of today, the budget has just been passed by the Senate. It is being concluded in the House of Representatives, and when it is concluded, it will be harmonized, and then the clerk will certify it to Mr. President. Only then will the money for the payment of the minimum wage be contained in the Act. But it is implementation takes effect immediately. It is, I think it is being worked out. It's being worked out. It is not that some people were believing that they will set a date, they will go and do another negotiation, but then before you pay, there must be a budgetary provision to pay. And that budgetary provision has been provided for by the president and has been approved by the Nigerian National Assembly, but the approval is inchoate until the bill, as passed by both chambers, is certified to Mr. President and assented to.
All right. So I'd like to take us back to about 40 years ago. And this is just to show you how the minimum wage has progressed. Now, this takes us back to about 1981. As at that point, the minimum wage was about 125 naira per month. That's in 1981. Fast forward to 1989, 1990, it was about 250 naira per month. Let's move over to 1999, 2000. You remember then it was about 3,000 per month, not until 2004 when it was 5,500 naira per month. Now I'm getting somewhere. In 2010, it was 18,000 naira, the famous 18,000 naira minimum wage. And finally, we're in 2019, and it is 30,000 naira per month. Now, Mr. Aruwase, a lot of people have said that perhaps 30,000 naira now is almost equal to 125 naira then in 1981. And people are saying this 30,000 naira is barely enough to get them home. Do you share those sentiments?
Yes, I quite agree with you. Those years you are talking of are years when people could feel government. You could go to a public school and have very good education. You would go to the hospital and also have good treatment. But those are things that you have to pay for now. So looking at what it was being paid then, you have to also look at the benefits that the ordinary citizen was enjoying in those years. They are no more there. So that also leaves a big gap of expectation of the people. And of course, we have a very large population that we have to contend with at this time. Also, when you talk of minimum wage, you are talking of government workers. Now, we are going to go and get a budget. We are going to provide the funding. But those of us in the private sector, we now have to look for a way of coping with this, because eventually this is going to aggravate inflation. It's going to drive inflation. And it's only government and government workers that this budgetary provision we are talking of is going to take care of. So we in the private sector, we have to look for a way of doing it. I told you that the organized private sector normally have this collective bargaining, but also it affects those below the line in the organized private sector. They are not able to cope with such negotiation. And what you get is a lot of companies will shut down, a lot of more people will lose their jobs. So government should look for a way that it would actually provide improved services. We are talking of reduction in the cost of living. I mean, cost of governance is huge, is a lot of money. We are talking of government trying to also subsidize consumption instead of subsidizing production. I mean, like the fuel subsidy we are talking of, we are subsidizing consumption. We should look for a way of subsidizing production. When you subsidize production, you enable the producers to produce more, you create more jobs, and you promote well-being of the people. And government will have enough money to take care of infrastructure, something that will be of benefit to all. But looking for money to pay a section of the people that will also create a problem for everybody is not the best way to go.
Now, I'd like us to get Senator Enang's reaction. Mr. Aruwase has placed a major bulk on the table of the government. And as a representative of the government, a lot of people have said, I mean, the coming months and weeks and years might probably be challenging for this new minimum wage. So what is the government doing to ensure that this is not a difficult journey for us all?
You know, the negotiation to arrive at the minimum wage took a long process. And the private sector was considered and were consulted, and they were part of the negotiation. And government on its part considered so many things, and it is in solidarity with workers and with those who are yet to be employed. Let me veer a little to say that our concern is about the workers, and it's also about those who are qualified to be employed but are not yet employed, and those who are underemployed. The government of President Buhari is very concerned about it. So while we celebrate the minimum wage for workers, we're also creating enabling environment for the public sector and the private sector to engage more and take more out of the labor market and put them on the payroll of either the private sector or the public sector. Now, my brother Kayode of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce has said that government is subsidizing consumption, that it should rather subsidize production. Yes, what we've done is to give a lot of incentives in many areas for the productive sector. Now, and then if you do not subsidize consumption, then the great majority of the people, particularly the unemployed, the underemployed, and the vulnerable citizens, will be suffering on the street. That is why the government of President Buhari introduced the social investment programs, the JIP and other investment programs, knowing that government and governance is not just for the employed alone. It's not just for the public sector and the private sector employees alone. It is also for those who are in the non-conventional wage bracket.
Right.
There are those who are working in the channels television. There are those who are working in NTA. There are those who are working in different private organizations. And they are not in the public sector.
Right. So
we are concerned.
Senator Enang, I'd like to butt in briefly. Senator Enang, if I may, I don't want us to forget that while workers in Nigeria are celebrating Workers' Day, there are also some people that don't have jobs. In fact, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, 21 million Nigerians are unemployed as at third quarter of 2018. So that means that 1 out of every 4 Nigerian at this point is not celebrating Workers' Day. Now, Mr. Ruwashi, I'd like you to respond to this briefly. What are we doing wrong? How did we get to this point?
Yeah, when I said we are subsidizing consumption, I'm not talking of the social benefits that the government is doing here and there. I'm talking of, for instance, we are looking at fuel subsidy. I mean, it's in the trillion of the dollar, I mean, a naira, that we are using to subsidize fuel. And the more we subsidize it, you know, when you subsidize consumption, there is this tendency for people to want to consume more. But we are talking, there are problems that are beheading business people, manufacturers. Cost of funding is very high, infrastructural deficit, so many things. Regulation too is creating a lot of problems. Why don't we look for a way of actually enabling this? These are the people that we employ. The small-scale people are the ones that are going to employ people. If you want to create employment, it's not by giving them money, these social benefits that we have, but by enabling the private sector to be able to create jobs. We are talking of access to funding, infrastructural decay, all this power problem that we have. That would enable the private sector to engage more staff and create more prosperity.
And hopefully reduce the unemployment.
And reduce unemployment. That's the only way you can reduce unemployment. But when we now, I mean, we spend a lot of money to subsidize fuel. It doesn't make sense. Why can't we use that? And we can also take care of social benefits like health care for the ordinary person that we are talking of that is on the road.
All right. Now, Mr. Ruwashi, I'd like Senator Enang to respond to that question, but that will be after the break, because this conversation will sort of snowball into the budget issue. We understand that the Senate has passed the budget, but then there's another process to ensuring that that budget flies. So right after the break, when we come back, I will talk about the 2019 budget as it relates to the Nigerian workers and, of course, you and I as Nigerians.